Welcome everyone. Call the meeting to order. Do we have an adoption of the agenda? Rob, thank you. So we're gonna, well, I guess we should welcome our two new permanent members of the committee, Ola and Hannah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Quite a few changes.
Yeah.
It's good though. So we'll move, call this meeting to discuss the work plan because we do have a few items that we need to discuss, and I think would be better if we got started on them now instead of, leaving these until September and then we'd be rushing to get it done before the House sat in mid-October now. So the first one is the Standing Committee on Health and Social Development. They sent over the recommendation for the examination of Bill number 35, an act to amend the Lands Protection Act. I don't know, I think everyone's probably aware of that. My suggestion would be that the committee could start with perhaps an in-camera meeting to review the summary of the IRAC report that the Health Committee did. And this would allow us to make an informed decision. Perhaps Ryan Redden could provide that briefing to us. Just on, I guess, on the reason why that was sent to our committee and why we would look at that. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that or not, but Rob?
It's just a hot potato, pass it around. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Hannah?
Thank you. Yeah, so I came from that committee to this one. And
Yes, yeah, that's right, you were on
Yeah,
that.
and so it would be a great place to start to get the context and to maintain that confidentiality. I would hope that the committee then does do something with it more than the previous one was able to, but it would be a great place to start because the summary that the clerk prepared was really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, he does have that depth of knowledge. We also obviously have access to the full report as well, so that's the other option, is that within the committee in camera we would also be able to sort of go through, have the full report available to us as well.
Yeah.
But the clerks will be able to coordinate, I think. So I would strongly recommend that.
Is everyone all right with that? Do we kind of have a consensus we can move forward on that? All right, perfect. That's good, is it? Okay. Motion 43, which the House passed, referring development of a sustainable irrigation strategy to our committee. I think perhaps it might be best to have the department first come in, and then there was a number of groups that we had invited in to discuss the regulations for the Water Act, and we can, if any of them would like to, I'm sure some will reach out and want to present to us or meet with us or perhaps just provide written feedback might suffice as well. I don't know. I'm not sure if the committee wants to have all the groups back in over again, or that's because it did take quite a while. But Ola?
Well, the minister specifically mentioned he had all the information to make the decision about irrigation, so maybe we should ask the minister to share that information with us.
Pardon, Ola? Can you just repeat that? Sorry.
The minister stated publicly that he had all the information necessary to make the decisions about irrigation. So maybe we can ask him to share that information.
So perhaps we have the department in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
But I mean,
Start with that.
specifically ask for that information.
Okay. Rob?
I don't have a problem with bringing the department back in to kind of review a lot of that, and I would probably say that they do have a lot of information, but I think there's two factors here. You got one factor, which is the lifting of the moratorium, which is really separate from an irrigation strategy. An irrigation strategy is what are going to be the processes, how many wells, things of that nature. The moratorium is once again, it singles out one group. There's no moratorium on capacity wells. So I look at them a little bit different. So to me, the department plays a role in that, and I would add three other groups that I think are important to make sure that we have in, and one of them would be the Potato Board, which is one of the ones that's mostly affected by this particular issue, and I'd probably put the second would be the Watershed Alliance, and the third would be the Federation of Agriculture. Now beyond that, it's up to every other committee and stuff, but those would be just three that I would want to see on an irrigation strategy, because see it as a little bit more specific to the process of irrigation versus the high-capacity well issue.
Darlene?
Thanks, Chair. So we discussed too about the role of this committee in, how involved do we get in, developing a strategy or steering someone toward the strategy, and then actually who does the strategy? Is it, is it through the department? Is it the department who takes it on with, consultation with, the potato board? And if the minister is saying he has what he needs now, how much further do we have to go? Yeah, so.
That's fair.
Yeah, so maybe if we do.
Yeah, and I don't think it will be the committees, we're not going to develop a plan and
Right.
send it to them.
Yeah.
We're going to meet with whichever groups we would want to have in and just make recommendations based on perhaps something that can be included in it or not included. And if the department wanted to choose to accept any of them or none of them, then that's their choice. But no, I do see your point. Yeah.
Yeah, just, what is our role, I guess, is, and, start with the department and what they have to say and go from there, I guess.
So we'll start with the department. Was everyone all right with Rob's kind of recommendation that we go to perhaps the Watershed Alliance, the Potato Board, and Federation after that?
Did the, Chair?
Hannah?
Did the Organic Producers Cooperative present as well, or do we have something from them?
Do we want?
Well, I don't know, I've been trying to look at sort of past meetings and so on. I don't necessarily want to have the committee have to sort of hear from everybody again, but just, it's just, if we've already had people in who have presented, is it a matter of reviewing what we've already seen rather than asking them to come again?
Yeah.
It's a lot for organisations to come and present. It's a lot of pressure on them and it's a lot of work. So I'm always mindful of, having been on the other side of that, how much it takes to have to show up to a committee. And I'm just looking at the motion, which is that it's not that we develop the strategy, it's that the committee study and make recommendations regarding the development of the strategy. And maybe that's looking at what's already been discussed.
Well, and
Darlene?
how involved we have to be in that. But I think if we have the department in first, that
Yeah.
could raise questions on, okay, what other questions do we have and who could provide the answer?
Did we have the? We did. They
Yes,
were
we
in,
did
right?
have them
Yeah, I
on,
thought they
yeah.
were.
So start with the department.
So yeah, we'll start with the department.
And then see from
Yeah,
there what we
and-
need to do, if we need to actually have people back in again, or if there's materials to be reviewed
And there's,
instead.
yeah, and there's some, I don't know, I'm not trying to, everyone's important, all the groups are important certainly, but there are some, I think, big ones, like, I think Rob mentioned them, like the Watershed Alliance and a couple, but because, well, when you think about it, if we don't meet over July and August, which normally committees don't, we have probably 4 or 5 weeks left until July, and you're not going to schedule like they might be busy on some of those Thursdays, and then really we only have September, and then you're into so perhaps written feedback from some of them might be, but I guess we'll know more when we hear from the department. But maybe we'll reach out to the 3 Rob had mentioned first to see if they'd be interested. Maybe, would we want 2 in one day? Now that means the meeting's going to go, it'll be a long meeting, but Rob?
I'll just give one, maybe a piece of advice or a suggestion here would be with the Watershed Alliance and the Potato Board, one possibility might be just have a meeting in a field that is already under the process of irrigation, and get a good sense of what it actually is, because I don't think a lot really truly know. They look at water shooting out and, so I know when I was Minister of Agriculture, I had the opportunity to meet with the group, I think it's John Phillips, and down in the Baddeck area, and went out. So, you may be able to combine something that might be very enlightening for our group and actually see irrigation in actually happening, and the science behind it and the way they test the soil moisture levels and when they do it. I found it interesting from my end when I was a minister, but I throw that out there as a kind of a, now whether the 2 groups would want to meet together, maybe that's a taboo too, but it seemed to be that Baddeck Growers Group was well They all seem to be on the same page from the farmers and the watershed groups in that area, but, you know, it's just a suggestion. So you could have one meeting with two, or you can have two meetings with the two separate in that regard.
So if we did that, it wouldn't technically be an official meeting, because obviously there wouldn't be Hansard and whatnot, and it wouldn't be public. But
I don't know. I would say it's still an official meeting. We're meeting as a committee.
But you can't do Hansard though.
But perhaps they could still come in to have it on the record,
Yeah, well,
but the committee could also go meet,
sure. Yeah,
you know,
I'm
take
not
a
in a-
morning and go, or whatever, whenever it would be, if the committee was interested. I'm not against that.
I'm
I think
just
it's a decent-
suggesting it. I'm not saying it has to be that way or whatever. If we're bound by certain parameters on the wording and things of that nature, one can be official, one could be not. You know, from my end, I've seen it, I've done it. I don't feel I need to be more enlightened on it, but you know, I can't speak for everybody on this committee, right? So.
Thoughts, and everyone? Is everyone all right with that? If we did that?
Field trip, literally.
Perhaps that can be over like July,
Yeah.
July or something, or,
Well, it's going to have to be sometime when they're going to be using irrigation.
Yeah.
I guess to me it would be irrelevant to do it in
With the weather probably
November.
currently next week, I mean, that's it.
Then 1st of June or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great idea.
Because I think that's another issue is that irrigation doesn't happen all the time. There's a pretty small window that it's done, right? So, no, I guess it depends what crops you're irrigating. I'll put a caveat in that. But what we normally see in the potato industry, you know, there's really a window from mid-July to 1st of September. That's about it.
all right. So I think we'll perhaps look to have them come into the committee, and then we might, the committee might go and meet. Yeah. I think that's a decent idea.
Chair?
Hal?
In the past, we've had a lot of success with having multiple presenters come in, if it's done efficiently. So if they're given a certain time limit to present, and if the questions that are being asked are set to a certain time, and not veering from task. So I think we could have multiples in easily.
Okay. Do we want to have the department in separately, though? That, I feel like they might be a bigger, yeah.
Start with the department.
And then the other groups could be, you know, have two in and they have a half an hour questions or whatnot. All right, okay. C, prioritization of outstanding work plan items. Do you want to go through?
Yeah, sure. So the two kind of outstanding items on the work plan were an invitation to the Minister of Agriculture. There was on the topic of the denied 2020 ag recovery application. And this kind of took a backseat to other topics at the time. I don't know if this is something the committee wants to pick up again. It was originally a suggestion by Mr. Henderson. So.
Chair, may I ask a
Hannah?
question?
Yeah.
Again, apologies, but I just wanted to clarify, this is regarding the compensation for Dorian?
Yes.
Between the federal
Yes.
provincial split? Because my recollection is the federal one was denied, and so the province picked up some of the difference, is that?
You are correct.
I am correct, okay. Yeah, I would personally be interested in seeing this on the agenda because my somewhat uninformed opinion is that I expect that we're going to see more more instances. This is not a 100-year instance anymore, and insurance and crop insurance in particular is something that needs to be managed on and in terms of making sure that it's fair for farmers. I just really worried about whether we're going to see more and more denials as we get more and more instances of major weather events.
Rob?
I'll just add a little bit into that, I guess, is that ag recovery is just one of the small tools in the crop insurance suite of services. Disaster relief through hurricanes and things like that is another tool. In this particular case, it was more of a case of that Ag Recovery didn't take into account, whether they should or they shouldn't is another story, but that damage, the corn as an example, was still in the field. It's just that the impacts on the quality of the corn were impacted. And see, crop insurance, it focuses mostly on the yield. This tends to be the parameter, and you can buy certain riders for certain commodities for quality. So it depends how you do it. Like in the potato industry, you can buy certain quality riders, color riders, and things of that nature. So, you know, I wasn't totally surprised that the Ag Recovery didn't get approved, but, you know, I guess it's a matter of does Ag Recovery eventually change to be more reflective of those things? And I think we play a role in that as legislators. But always be reminded that, you know, there's always three partners in any of these programs. There's usually the farmers or the industry, there's the province and the federal government. And the federal government tries to make programs that are very conducive all across the country, right? And there's, as a former minister that's dealt with this stuff, it's not always as easy to make those changes federally or whatever. So,
I just know
Hannah?
from other applications that the insurance industry in general and risk assessment in particular is never on the side of the consumer. True. So and it's a really complicated space to get into, but at the same time it's one that really matters. So you know, a review of the conditions around the program would make sense. I don't know whether that's in the purview of this committee, because it's as much a financial piece as it is I guess the program design, the conditions of the program may be related to here, but the actual application of it would be financial.
Rob?
just to add into that, like all of those suite of programs are generally revenue neutral over a period of time, right? So that's why I mentioned that the farmer too is also a partner in this, because if it's going to be revenue neutral on some of these events, then you're dealing with higher premiums to make that. And it's somewhat complicated, but it also impacts on factors around trade issues that you run into on these programs too. We provide, those guarantees of these programs, but they have to be trade compliant, and it's not intended to be something that's a freebie, I guess, per se, in the suite of crop insurance programs. Disaster relief is a little different section of that, but anyway, I just want to clarify some of those points, or inform some of the members, I guess, to how that works.
What did sorry, Darlene?
The role that we play as a province in convincing the feds, because they have a very generic model.
Exactly.
So, how do we, I don't know what our role is as far as how we can convince them that,
Rob?
what's important to PEI is,
Yeah, well, it goes back to that same thing, that the federal government has these programs, so it doesn't give one province an advantage over another, right? So there's a process that you have to go through to make any changes to any of the programs, and within the crop insurance suite of programs, because they're the federal government is the big contributor in all of this, so we have to understand that they're a little more complex, but it's not, it would be a worthy discussion. I totally get that.
And
Anna?
in this instance, the province picked up some of the balance because the federal didn't, right? So there is an implication in terms of, like you said, if you've got something that's revenue neutral and you're having to come up with this extra chunk to cover this piece, then that's going to impact other potential program. That's having an impact somewhere down the road. And as legislators, hopefully, if there is a message to be sent back up the chain, then it coming from a committee recommendation would be helpful, in my humble opinion.
What did the minister say? Did they respond to that request that we sent? Invitation?
I believe on that topic, it was a scheduling conflict. We'd also been asking him to come in to speak to the report, so that was at the time
Okay.
taking precedent. But at the time for that topic, it was scheduling, I believe.
So do we still want to have the minister in? That's what I gather? Okay, all right. IRAC approval of Maritime Electric's 2021 rate increase. That invitation was sent in January, and it also took a back seat to having IRAC in to present on the process of the land sale investigations. So did we ask for IRAC? We asked for IRAC on this one, correct?
Yes, and that invitation was sent, and the committee had decided, I believe, at the time that they didn't want to have two large presentations with them at the time the land sale
Yes, that's
or the
right, yeah.
land process was large enough. So if the committee would still like to have them in, I touched base with them yesterday just to see if they had any availability for June, and I believe they're going to check on that. And if not, we'd be looking at September.
Is committee all right with that? Okay, perfect. Do we have any new business? Rob?
I'll just mention, you know, the Land Matters Committee's out there. You know, we're assuming there's going to be a report in the fall. It wouldn't be a bad move to have an update on just how they're getting along, and it may also play into a little bit, or make the Section A of the work plan a bit redundant to a certain degree too. I mean, if they're very close to making recommendations, you know, those recommendations will have to be implemented by government and brought to the legislature, things of that nature. But that would be one that sort of intrigues me a little bit, to see if we can get an update on that.
Everyone's all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further new business? No? Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved, Arlene, thank you.